You're watching AndyTube again, and thank you. This video I called the Magic Scepter, and it's part 7 in my series of Coco Goes to the Spa. And what I'm really talking about, many of you already figured out, is the feed control that we commonly call the stitch length lever or stitch length control. Okay, but I think of it as the magic scepter. Magic, used as a verb like move, change, or create as if by magic. And scepter as a noun, a rod or a wand borne in the hand as an emblem of regal or imperial power. That's right. When you sit down to sew at Coco, you are the king or queen, and you have the imperial power to use that magic scepter to move, change, or create as if by magic incredible lock stitch sewing. And it's like magic because you move this up or down and it's way over here on the right side of the machine, right? But it changes what happens way over here on the left side of the machine. And how it changes it is it makes the feed dog move in different ways. So we think of this as the stitch length, but and that really, it makes a lot of sense, and I think that's why it's commonly called that. But really, this is a feed regulator. The way a stitch is made is by the feed dog. I wonder if I can get a little bit closer here. Maybe you can see the feed dog move as it pulls the fabric past the needle. Or if I go up into reverse, it pushes the fabric towards the sewer past the needle. And the way it controls the length of that stitch, because the needle just goes up and down. When you're straight stitching, it just goes up and down. So the way it controls is the longest stitch setting is called a 6. Many people think of that as 6 stitches per inch. That's the longest stitch. So the feed dog is going to move the fabric the longest amount. As the needle's going up, that feed dog comes up and pushes the fabric against the presser foot and drags it back whatever amount you've set. And then the feed dog rotates down as the needle comes down and punctures the fabric. So you're really regulating the feed. You're regulating how much fabric is fed past the needle. Either down for forward, moving the fabric forward sewing, or up into reverse, pulling that fabric back towards you, the king or queen. Okay. And it is kind of magic. I mean, look how simple it is. Look how easy they made it. Right there at eye level, and you say, well, I want a medium fine stitch here on this woven fabric, so I'm going to set it at 12. It's going to move the fabric in 12 little increments approximately per inch while you're sewing. So I call this the feed regulator, but the actual feed regulator is down behind this plate. But let me name some parts here of the whole feed regulator system, and I'm going to share some pictures of these parts that were generously provided by a couple of viewers from when they worked on their machines, their 301s. You maybe saw this slide show of Sharon's 301 restoration, and I wrote to her and she said, yeah, use the pictures, that's great. Encourage people to work on their machines. And more recently I had contact with another viewer, Susan, who had a kind of a weird problem, and we emailed back and forth a couple times and pictures, and then the problem became clear and she fixed it, and she was kind enough to take a couple pictures of that and the weird part and stuff. So I'm going to share those too, but let me show you what I can here without disassembling, remembering that this is a rehab, not a restore, and we've washed the machine. If this is working normally for you, it should have gotten clean when you gave it a shower, but if you wanted to, you could clean a little bit more, but I would only use alcohol. I wouldn't risk having the crud cutter on all this stuff very long. So you could turn it out left all the way and put a Q-tip dipped in alcohol. If you felt it was still a little dirty, put a Q-tip up in there and run it around, a little alcohol, and clean it out a little bit, and then tilt it up and put a drop of oil right down in the center there, and then twist the thumb nut to spread that oil right along the screw stud. Okay, and then back out. And that would be after the rehab type of cleaning we did without tearing everything apart. And this is called the Feed Regulator Screw Stud Thumb Nut. And the screw stud is the screw stud that goes from the thumb nut into the machine and actually screws into the actual mechanism that is the true feed regulator. And the feed regulator moves along a little slide block that is attached. Let me get these on since I'm going to be grabbing some tools here. That is attached to the feed forked connection. So when it turns, that's an eccentric kind of bearing on the shaft. So the hole isn't in the center, it's off to the side, and that's why it rocks that feed fork connection. And that changes when we move the feed regulator. See? Moves it up, reverse, sends it back down, forward, shorter, and the other magic part about this Scepter or feed regulator is this. Get back in there a little bit. From number 6 stitch, we go up, and it's minute adjustments. This is the stitch indicator plate. So that's what the numbers are for. So you get up to 12, 20. It gets right up there to about 30 stitches per inch. I mean, it just looks like little dots of thread. They are so close together. And you can actually keep going up into like a neutral position where when the hand wheel turns, the feed dog is just kind of going straight up and down. It doesn't go from front to back or back to front. It just kind of bobs up and down. And of course you wouldn't want that, because your fabric wouldn't be moving, so you just keep stitching in the same place. But it's very fine control. And once you get up above this separator line, now you're moving into reverse stitching. Okay, and it's kind of inverse of this. So if you were just below the line, you might be sewing at 28 stitches per inch forward, and if you moved up above that line that much, you'd kind of be sewing at 28 stitches reverse. And then the farther up you go, the longer and longer the stitch per inch. Just like the farther down you go here, the longer. So the reason that you have a thumb nut and just not a lever is that you can do what they Singer call lock in the stitch. So let's say you're going to be sewing on a blouse or a shirt or slacks or a skirt, and you decided that a number 12 stitch looks really good with the fabric and what you're doing. So you set the lever there, and you turn it at 12, and you turn it until the back side of the thumb nut rests up against the plate. So look, let's see, back out. So here I've got an extra plate, right? And I've got an extra thumb nut. Thank you, Susan. Right? So when you tighten it up, you want it just to rest up again here. Don't keep tightening it and mash it in and bend the plate or scratch it up. Just tighten that thumb nut to the point where it's touching. Okay? And what Singer's claim is that will keep it there, but when you go to a reverse, like at the end of a you're sewing a hem or whatever, you people who know how to sew know what I mean. If you throw it up to reverse, it's going to stop at the same length. You had it set to 12 here. It's going to go right up to 12, reverse, and then boom, right back down to 12 forward. So that is a very nice feature. Now, what I have found, and my wife uses a 301 as her daily machine, it's her favorite sewing machine, is you don't really need to screw it in to keep the stitch in place. Like, there is enough pressure on the feed regulator hinge screw, and you can adjust that pressure, that it'll pretty much keep in place where you set it. And if you set it at 12 and you don't tighten it, and you're sewing along and it starts creeping up or down, that usually means that the feed regulator hinge screw isn't adjusted properly. Okay, so as a rehabber, at this point, you would just make sure that this got as clean as you wanted and give it a little oil. Okay? For those of you who need to get inside and remove some of these parts the way Susan did, she had a definite problem, and the only way to solve it was she actually had to replace the actual feed regulator. Or you may want to take this apart to do a more thorough cleaning the way Sharon did with her 301. She had spent hours with Q-tips and alcohol and was frustrated. Then she saw my video about washing and taking stuff off, and she just went for it. And I've got pictures of her parts out of the machine, and a picture of the defective part from Susan. But the other part I can show you right now is the feed regulator hinge screw. It's just a nice big heavy screw. I mean, it's almost a bolt. And on the right here is a little washer with like 3 springy flanges on it. Okay, and that's called a friction washer. And where that goes is right below the hand wheel. And if you've never had the hand wheel off, you've never even seen it back in here. But it's back in here, and it goes through the actual feed regulator part and attaches to that feed fork connection that holds the slide block. So this would be a good time, I think, to discuss the pictures that these 2 generous ladies provided me to share with you. So let's look at those. Okay, let's start first with the pictures from Sharon, and it's a little the angles, just how she happened to take it, but you can see she's removed the indicator plate here, and she went ahead and took out the thumb nut. I can't believe they want to sell me something right now. Okay, she took off the thumb nut and she removed the screw stud. So this is a nice shot down this side over here. You can see the feed fork connection coming from the the top of the machine down to help with the movement of the feed dog. And here you can see the little slide block right there as it's mounted to the feed fork connection, and this is the feed regulator itself slid onto it. So this is the feed regulator, and this is the screw coming through from below the hand wheel area and coming into the feed regulator. That's kind of the side view. So that's a good shot of how it looks back there. And that's why you can take off the indicator plate and even just get in here sometimes and clean this and put a drop of oil over here and a drop of oil on the end of the opening for the slide. But that was a great picture. This is a picture of when she went ahead and took that out of the machine. Unexpectedly, the slide block came out for her, and she had a panic moment with that. But then this is the feed regulator, and this, the slide block fits into this area right there, and she has the hinge screw attached on the back side of this to show. You can see the end of the hinge screw right there. Let's see if I can bring this in a little closer here. So these were great shots, and these were kind of her, I believe, after cleaning shots. Really nice pictures there. And then she went back and took a picture of that space after she removed the parts. And this is the slide block screw stud that little slide block sits on and swivels. And you see how it's attached to this feed fork connection over there. And then this is the hinge screw hole where that hinge screw comes in from under the hand wheel goes right through there and into this area where it goes into the feed regulator. And that's why when you're moving that screw stud and thumb nut on the front, it's kind of rocking up and down on that hinge screw and sliding on the slide block, which makes the movement of that forked feed connection change, from a shorter feed dog stroke to a longer one. That was a good shot. And you see why she decided to clean more, by the way. This is what she was seeing under the indicator plate. And here you can see up here at the top what she was seeing under the, what she found under the bobbin winder stop. So, okay. Then this is, after cleaning, she was bagging up her parts. And, she'd never done anything like this before. So she put the slide block into the regulator, and had the hinge screw into the regulator, which is a great idea to keep tracks. And she was taking pictures of stuff to remind her, how they came off the machine and kind of how they go together. So that's a good picture of how this would sit on that stud, the slide block, and then the regulator slides onto that and then bolts that hinge screw from under the hand wheel comes through right here and goes into the feed regulator. Really nice. Okay, and then viewer Susan, who had a real adventure with this machine she got, and she was restoring it, and she first emailed me on the channel and said, it's coming along real well and I like the machine, but I can't get any better than about a number 15 stitch, and I moved the lever down to 6, but it doesn't, it just sews at 15. So, I mentioned a couple things, and then she wrote back and mentioned, something looks kind of weird about this. So she sent me a picture, and what she found was the thumb nut had been forced on this, which is not the original screw stud. It's a replacement, and I don't know if the original got lost or broken. Hard to imagine broken, but so somebody just went to the hardware store and got a like a open-ended bolt, like a nut and bolt set, and put it right into the existing feed regulator inside, but it's the wrong thickness. So I said, that's why it can't move enough to get down below about 15. So she said, well, can I get the parts and I'll just replace it? And I said, yeah, you look on eBay, and I gave her a few places to check, and I said, but I'm worried, if I was you, if somebody's selling the whole system, I'd pay a little more and get it, because I'm worried that the feed regulator is going to be like stripped out, because how would they get this big old bolt in there that's bigger than the factory one? And I said, oh, okay. So like she ordered the parts, said, oh, I found the parts and I'll let you know. And then sure enough, she sent me a really nice email thanking me for my help, and a couple pictures here. This is where she had, taken the hand wheel and borrowed some tools from her husband. Thank you very much, hubby. It's not always easy to loan your tools out, even to your significant other. But she used a socket and got in here, and you see that she protected the I should get in closer on this, sorry. You see how she, put some soft material here in the opening, because when you start getting up here and turning this hinge screw out, the regulator wants to move with it, and you can damage parts and you can scratch your machine. So she very wisely, who knows what's going to happen, so she protected that. And other than that, doesn't the machine she's working on look great? Wow, nice job, Susan. So her last picture here is showing the two feed regulators. So this is the old one up here with this different size, standard American size bolt in there, and this was the new vintage original manufactured parts, and showing the difference. And this is what happened here. You can see somebody jammed this in or drilled it in. I think they probably maybe like drilled a hole to get this one in, or the bolt may have had a head and they just forced it in there and sawed off the bolt head. But I think maybe they drilled a hole, and you see the whole thing is damaged and it's crooked. It's supposed to be coming up at an angle more like that, and it was bent down, so that's why she couldn't turn it down enough to get more than a 15 stitch, to get down into 12 or 10 or 6. So you see the angle here of the original piece, kind of comes along the same line of like that, and then this one should be coming up like that, and it's way down. So she lost half of the stitch length control. So that was a great comparison, and that's why before I was saying, you may need to go in here and work on this. Something could malfunction in there for you, or like I said, if you pick up a machine and decide to restore it for your use, or give to somebody, or to sell it, hey, it wasn't obvious when she got the machine. It had it had a screw and it had a thumb nut and everything. Hey, So another great picture to show you some of these things. And I think that was it. Was there? Oh, this is the picture that I took. I'll be showing later. Of the inside. It's kind of like we didn't have this in the previous pictures. So here's the feed fork connection, and I've got a picture with the slide block in, but the other stuff out. So right over here on this side is the hole. I should have taken it a better angle, but there's the hole for the hinge screw to come through, and so the feed regulator would be sitting right here, slid onto that block. So I wanted to show you what it looks like, because if you go and you take that indicator plate off and pull on the thumb screw and screw stud and slide the regulator out, this is kind of what's going to be left in there. And that would be normal. You don't usually take out the slide block. You can, but okay, so there's the pictures, and I'm going to put a little slideshow at the end of this video, like 4 or 5 seconds each picture, but you can click on them and pause them if you want to be able to see them better on your screen or your device. Hey, there's my little Scepter. Okay, so let's get back over to the bench and get busy on Coco. Okay, I'm back here with Coco now, and I am going to show you how to remove these parts, and show you that method in case you want to, Or, like Susan, you have a need to. Something's not right. Or you just want to take off the indicator plate and get in there a little bit to do a little spot cleaning and a couple fresh drops of oil. And I'm going to show you the way Singer says to take these parts off. Now, on the end of the screw stud, there is a slot cut in it for a screwdriver. And, people will turn the thumb nut in as far as it'll go, kind of in the center position here, and without damaging the indicator plate. And then you can get a fine tip screwdriver in there, and this isn't the one, but you can go in there and maneuver and find that slot and start turning it to the left, and the whole screw stud with the thumb nut will just come out of the actual feed regulator. But then what are you going to do? It might be pretty tricky to line everything back up when you go to put it together. So the way that Singer says to approach this is to back out that thumb screw as far as it'll go, and it's got a definite stop to it, and then to take off the two screws that hold the indicator plate. And these screws can be a little bit soft, so you want to be sure that you have a well fitting screwdriver. And I'm kind of blocking my light here, blocking the light from you. Let's see if I can maneuver this other little desk lamp over. Is that better? So a well-fitting screwdriver, so that we don't damage these little bit softer screws. And these tiny screws, they like to jump right out and hide from you. So watch for that. I'm going to put mine in a little magnetic tray there, and then I'm going to take the bottom one off here. And the indicator plate may slide away from the machine onto the thumb nut, which is okay, because that's actually what Singer says to do. Just like that. Okay. And actually, I wonder if I can get in there a little bit and show you inside there. You're seeing, maybe you can see the screw stud going in to the bottom of the feed regulator, like on Sharon and Susan's machine, and you'll be able to see it in there. So if you wanted to stop here and just make sure the area was clean and put a couple drops of oil on the moving parts where they move against each other, like the slide and the feed fork connection, that's fine. It's just a couple of screws, and a lot of times you can find, like Sharon did, a lot of grungy stuff under here. This machine is so pristine, and we did do the crud cutter washing. Okay, anyway, now that you got that loose, we're going to come down here, and we're going to see if I can grab my wood block here, get you a little elevated view. I had a friend the other day tell me I should get these glasses that have a camera in them, so I wouldn't have to work around the camera. I wonder if any of you have ever used something like that. I don't know the quality of them, but he says they're good, that his son and nephew do them when they ride their dirt bicycle in competition, and they make filming and stuff, and he said that they come out pretty good. The only thing, he's not sure if they would film this close, but anyway, you've got the hand wheel off, right? And I showed you how to do that. So back inside here is the feed regulator hinge screw that I also showed you and you saw in the other pictures, right? So I just use a screwdriver, you know, but you saw the wrench that Susan used, and you can use a thin wall socket wrench to get in there if you need to, but I'm just going to use my biggest blade that came with my Chapman screwdriver set. It's kind of dark in there, isn't it? Yeah. Get in there a little bit. Okay, I think I got the blade in there pretty good. And we'll just see. I have used the socket on these before, but I feel this one there, it's starting to move. Okay. So we're going to loosen that screw, hinge screw all the way out of the actual feed regulator. And usually for me, the slide block stays on the feed fork connection. Not like poor Sharon, which I didn't say anything about it, comes off, and she pulled out that regulator and had her pachinko moment as the slide block bounced around all through the upright of the machine. Okay, so there we go, and you can see that there is some still some older black oil and deposits on there that the cord cutter couldn't get into the way that we rehabbed it. But let's get that with my little parts dish, and let's go back here, because now you can grab that thumb nut and the whole unit is going to come right out, just like you saw in the ladies' pictures. Okay, and let's see, let me grab a Q-tip, and you can see that there's oil in here from when I oiled it, but there's still a little black residue. But overall, look how clean it got just from the washing, you know. So again, you don't need to do this, but it's good that you understand how everything works and how to do it if the need ever arises. And I've got machines where the slide block was rusted right into the feed regulator and wouldn't budge, and I had to take the whole thing apart and, you know, put some must for rust on there and break it free and replace the parts and stuff. So hopefully you never encounter that, but if you decide to like buy one of these and restore it or rehab it, you know, it's good for you to know how this works. So let's see if I can show you that slide block in there, maybe. I'm not gonna show up. Let me turn that a little bit. It's a little bit tricky to see, but you can see the silver slide block, hopefully. That's why I wanted to show you the pictures the gals generously let me use. And I know if they're watching this that they're going to have memories of doing this, and in their mind they're going to be encouraging viewers, yeah, you can do this. I did it. You can do this if you want to or you need to. So let's see if I can get a picture of that area in there now. So you're just going to see you know, the milled surface of the casting, the aluminum with the hole going through. So, okay, I think you've had plenty of views of the parts and how they work together and how they are assembled. We're going to do the tricky part now, which is getting the feed regulator slot back onto the slide block. And the slide block is really fidgety. It just spins around like you can blink your eye at it and it moves. You know, it's just kind of on a swivel stud there. So, and you can't come in at it sideways when when you're putting it in, because I'm hoping you can see that these are kind of tapered here at the let me get this back. These are tapered, so the front is more narrow than the back. So you can't just put it in there and move it sideways onto that slide block. You really got to slide onto it. So I've never been real good at this, and I've learned just not to be frustrated, you know, and just forcing it never works. Moving slowly and steadily seems to be the best approach for me. Now going in from the top behind with a stick, or somebody suggested to me a pencil eraser might help hold that thing from spinning, so I thought I'd give it a try. And I do know you can't have it tilted left or right, because you're sliding it right on the end of that block. And for me, the best position is turning the hand wheel until the needle bar is up, which kind of gives this a little bit closer view. And I'm trying to hold that slide block with the pencil eraser to keep it from just spinning around like a fidgety spinner or something, and keep gently trying to find the end of the slide block with the beginning of the slot in the regulator. And I really don't know of a better approach to this. Yeah, I really think, guys, I gotta move the camera and get this in a position so that I can see it more straight on. Okay, so what I found was getting the camera out of my way and taking the wood block out from underneath Coco and getting down on it more eye level. I could see it better, and with a pencil stuck in the back to kind of hold it a little bit, on about the third little try, I got the regulator slid on to the slide block. So, hallelujah. And now I'm going to put that screw back in here on the end and kind of jockey this around. Sometimes you have to kind of lift that feed fork connection up, but usually that you do that to get it on the slide block anyway. But you'll feel it get started in there, and once it gets into the regulator there, just barely driver, and get it in the slot of the screw. It's down here in the dark. Oh man, there we go. And then just support this up a little bit and gently start turning the screwdriver and wiggling, and you'll feel it start lining up, because the regulator has some movement on that slide block, but once you start the screw in over here from the right, it just kind of starts lining everything up for you. So you want to go ahead and tighten it up pretty securely, not too hard, because we want this movement here, okay? And then before I close all this up, I'm going to put a little bit of oil in there on that screw stud and the slide, and kind of behind the slide over on the left where it swivels against the feed forked connection. Just 2 or 3 drops of oil in there. That's on the swivel. That feels good. Let's see if I can tilt it up and still see in there and get some on the end of that slide. Yeah, just a couple drops. Okay, that feels pretty good. Then we want to go ahead and put the indicator plate back on securely, and then we will adjust the screw over here on the right to make sure that there's enough pressure that your screw stud doesn't, go bouncing around. It's too loose, or it vibrates loose while the machine is working. But you don't want it so tight that it's hard for you to make small adjustments on the oh, I should have changed my, let me just try this little tension screwdriver just to get these started in the hole. You don't want the system too tight that it's hard for you to move the lever up and down. Especially sometimes you're going to just want to move it in very small amounts, and if it's real stiff, it'll jump on you. By the time you put enough pressure to move it, you can't really control a small movement. So I'll show you what I mean here. Get these screws back on there. I don't know if you remember when I took that hinge screw out of there, there's still some black grease on there. The machine is clean, and that's a Rehab, where you just take off a certain amount of parts and you get probably 95% of the old grease and oil and smells and everything out of there. Now if you strip this off and disassembled it before you washed it, all those parts we just looked at would be very clean, just like up in the front. If you took the needle bar and presser bar and all those parts out, it just gives you a little bit more access to get it a little bit more clean. But it is a bit of work. So that's why a lot of people were like, I don't want to do all that, but I want to get the machine nice. So Rehab instead of Restore. So now I've got this in here, and it's pretty smooth movement. If I make it a little tight, okay, it's still smooth. That really didn't change the pressure on this. Well, now you're getting to the point where turning the screws, moving the whole lever. Okay, so that usually is where you want to be. You go ahead and tighten it up. It just has that little kind of like springy washer. If you do a 400, it's got a big actual spring on there, and you can adjust it very minutely. But this is pretty much tighten it firmly. Don't crack your wrist bone trying to bear down on it. But if you saw that when I was tightening it, it just moved the whole lever up. Okay, down and up. So that is good. It's firm. So like I said, if you wanted to set it on a number and sew without doing what they called, locking the stitch in, it's not going to move around on you. And that's what you want. You don't want it creeping. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a drop of oil, my tube, so I can see it come out down in there on that screw stud, and work it up and down. That's a steel screw, so we want to be sure we got it oiled nicely. Look at that. Okay, so you could also tell as I was doing this disassembly, it got the machine pretty darn clean excuse me, without taking all those parts off, so I understand that people don't want to do it. I just got in the habit of doing it, but you could see things were looking pretty good. So don't feel obligated, don't feel like you have to take off the parts. Take off what you can. I mean, pretty much you've got to take the wiring, either protect it or remove it, and the covers, but that's all pretty easy. I think the pre-treatment is quite a big deal. As I use this method more and more, I found myself pre-treating more and more, because I could use a stronger solution in a controlled environment here on the bench. Then when I took it into the shower, I could use a much weaker solution to finish off the body and stuff, so less worry of damaging paint and things like that. And it goes pretty quick in the shower, and that's the idea. You want to get all the chemical off in there and dry it and get that good first oiling to protect it. So, boy, she's still, I've oiled her and greased her twice, and she's still smooth, but we'll do one more official. But the magic scepter, now you understand how it works, that it's a feed regulator, and you know the magic behind it now. So as the king or queen, when you sit down, you're in control. So you're not only the tension master now, but you are the operator and the noble person of the magic scepter. Congratulations. Thanks for tuning in, and come back for part 8, I guess it's going to be.